on the bloopers reel?
Probably.
Retros.
Oh man, the dad joke.
Yeah. The problems that they have with the graph. Okay, number one, the first thing, if you look at the graph, it was taken when the plane was on the ground. It shows a shift of minus 85 hertz. So according to their calculations, this involves like three-dimensional trigonometry and stuff, which is why I didn't actually sit down and try to replicate their calculations.
No. I looked at the graph.
Even close.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take their word for it. So according to these guys, the plane would have had to be moving about 50 miles an hour relative to the satellite to produce that kind of a shift. So that doesn't make any sense in Inmarsat.
No, because that's when they're loading baggage.
Yeah.
The plane's not moving.
Yeah, I think at that time they were at the gate, and they might have just left the gate, but they weren't yet taxiing to the runway.
Okay.
According to their logs. They say that the frequency shifts are higher at the beginning of the graph, including that 50 miles an hour that's sitting at the starting gate. And they're lower at the other end. So the shift at the last ping on their graph shows the plane moving away from the satellite at 103 miles an hour. But they produced a map, which we've all seen. It's a map.
They did.
That map shows the plane receding at 272 miles per hour relative to the south. Reproduction.
Basis is that when Inmarsat did all their math, they didn't. They said, well, the satellite doesn't move, so we know where it's at. Up and down, north and south. And when when I was reading it, these guys did the math, and they said, well, if you factor in the fact that at this point it should have been at the... Wait, the plane is moving at 1 mile an hour in the very first ping that's 11 minutes before takeoff. So that actually makes more sense. That's how they got to their arc of trajectory of where this plane would have gone.
Well, actually, they took it a step further. Inmarsat based their calculations on the fact that the satellite was moving, and so that's how they figured that out. That the satellite was so. Say for example, if the plane's going south and those things for you guys to look at from the plane that is going south is going to be at a higher frequency. We're going to have those like on our website, I think, which is they figured that out. What they didn't take into account, apparently, is that the satellite is also moving relative to the ground receiving station that it's sending its data to. Back a shifted radio ping, and then they retransmit that to the ground station.
Which is also moving relative to the satellite.
Yeah,
I feel like that was the first time that he did it.
West, a long ways southwest from the satellite, and so the fact that they didn't take that into account threw all their stuff off.
So it actually is two moving points in space, not one moving point in space.
Do they have an updated graph then?
Inmarsat does not.
But these guys?
Yeah, these guys do. Michael Exner, the founder of American Mobile Satellite Corporation, did the calcs on what exactly the shift would have been.
Is that thing?
Extracted it from the actual data and plotted a different graph.
Like this, that's what you wanted?
No, I was about to trend that. Yeah, and then this one, like you said, does have the plane practically at zero at the beginning, which is where it ought to be.
Yeah.
You think?
Hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. All right, so anyway, are higher, but they solved that problem. They're higher at the beginning and lower at the end. And another big problem with it is, and I'm going to hold up this graph to the microphone so our listeners can see. Yeah, another big problem with it is they fixed that, but that still doesn't settle the issue of whether the plane went north or south, because as these guys have said, Inmarsat's projected or predicted tracks for the plane north and south make absolutely no sense. If you look at, we'll post a copy of this online for our wonderful listeners. But if you look at this,
for those of us in the room,
for those of you in the room, you can see this. If you look at this at 1940, and we're talking.
Oh yeah, there was a woman with an 8-inch tall.
So the green line is the actual recorded ping, and this is the north course with an 8-inch tall. But at that time, at 1940, the satellite had reached its northernmost point, and was about to start going back south again, which means that moving.
Yeah, it was stable.
Yeah, it was at that point not really moving. So what people are puzzled about on it's the predicted tracks that
Tree.
8-inch tall and 8-inch be like the same spot.
I
Yeah.
also think when I see correlations like this on a map that are so close, when they're like, oh yeah, this is what we project it would have been, and this is what it actually is, so like obviously this is where it went. I just kind of call bunk on it.
Yeah.
Like I just don't necessarily. I just can't quite. Yeah, I can't quite get there.
Yeah, well, there's some other head scratchers about the whole thing. Then those two lines should like assume that the satellite turned around and started going south. Let me get my phone book. Hang on.
Yeah, her name was just Jane.
On that line, right? So at that point, those two lines should be parallel. In other words, the shift should be the same, no matter what, for the north.
Why?
Satellite is not staying at the same speed; it's picking up speed as it moves southward. What that means is that those lines should move apart as time goes by. Now, look at the reason I have one is: have you ever gone out on the look what happens? They cross.
Oh, they do.
Oh, the north-south lines.
The predicted north-south track lines cross. Now, how can this happen when the satellite is moving southward?
Yeah, that's an issue.
Yeah. And so
This thing is fraught with problems.
yeah.
I'm not even that good at graph things, and
It sort of jumps out at you, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
graph
So
things.
So anyway, these guys have been help somebody need this stuff.
Guessing. We guessed.
Yeah, it's probably. And it's like oh, phone number link. You click on that.
Put
yeah.
some points on a graph. Made
But-
it look legit.
Yeah.
We had
yeah.
our intern Billy work on that.
Uh-huh.
He's good with graphs and colors.
He's good at making it.
We'll sell you this phone number.
True.
You guys, it's a head scratcher why Inmarsat won't just tell us why they came up with that particular prediction. And as Ari Schulman, the guy who
To call people that don't make their phone numbers right.
thanks, Ari. So what he says is, since they won't say how they arrived at their estimates, and I'm totally paraphrasing here, the frequency shifts for the north and south predicted paths, their argument basically is trust us. And so in other words, there's no reason to believe they're correct about the flight heading south.
I guess lends a little credence to the whole like Pakistan idea to me.
Yeah. For my job, sometimes I have to track people down.
Oh, we can't tell you how we came up with these things, but just trust us. Just trust us. And
Yeah, there we go.
coming out.
Yeah, like today I spent...
At some point, you kind of have to say there's enough weird information flying around that this isn't just coincidence and incompetence anymore. This
Wet work, ladies and gentlemen.
see not here.
Yeah.
But at some point, you kind of have to look at all of the incompetence that's been happening around this whole thing and
Well, I
say,
wouldn't call it.
Talk to for work.
I guess is probably you kind of have to take that step back and say, okay, is it possible that all of these people who are like professionals who really should know what they're doing are making these blunders, or is it more likely
That they're lying to us?
they're not supposed to actually tell us what they know?
Yeah, I think that probably is it, which leads to a whole lot of questions. Supposing it is in Pakistan, perhaps our government, the Chinese government, got a number that finally wasn't disconnected, and they called and left a message. We're on the plane.
Well, or you just don't want Pakistan to know. I mean, the people. So, like, oh, we know you have it. If you're gonna try and organize a rescue or covert operation or anything like that, you're not gonna be like, oh yeah, we know they have it.
Yeah. Head of a state, and somebody commits an act of war, which this is, and you don't want to respond to that provocation, what do you do? Well, hello there. Welcome.
Play dumb.
Is to just pretend like you don't know anything about it. So you tell the boys in Inmarsat, they come up with this idea, and you say, fine, just cook the books a little bit so we can say it went south, and we don't have to go, beat the bushes up in Pakistan and up there.
Although
in Kush.
I will say that if this is a deliberate misdirection, we've sunk a lot. I mean, just the U.S. Navy alone has sunk
a lot of
millions of dollars. So if I would say that, I would be really angry.
Well, all right, let's try it again.
We knew it was, wherever else this whole time, but we just felt like we needed to save face.
Yeah, and obviously, and that's the thing that's a head scratcher too.
Gosh.
Okay. It's really the end because think about all the families who've been thinking for all this time that their loved ones are dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you better have a really good story. Welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways. Explicable, and it still might have gone south, as these guys are saying. They're not claiming that it went north.
They're just claiming it didn't go the way that Inmarsat said it did.
Yeah.
Well, and I swear that I saw a map that they had drawn where it took from its original launch point, it took a very southwesterly route. So it's not heading towards Australia at all. It was heading way away.
Okay.
So you're not going to be the only one on the blooper reel now. No wreckage has been found because it is, thousands of miles in the opposite. But it didn't go southeast, it went southwest relative to where it started from.
Yeah.
It makes it difficult.
So facts.
We're doing.
It's been found. Not the tiniest little oil slick in the surface of the water. It kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's about
More to say.
No.
Yeah.
Slipped out of time.
Yep. Probably a black hole.
Yep.
So anyway, folks, we just wanted to bring you guys up to date on all the latest. All right, folks. So if you would like to send us an email, our email address is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us and, of course, like us a lot on Facebook. And our webpage is, of course, thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. You can find us on iTunes. So please stop, give us a review. We like reviews, especially good reviews. So anyway, to your iPod, you can just stream us on the go. And that's it. So, for Thinking Sideways, this has been a very special episode. The update.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a slide.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Breaking news in the disappearance of Malaysia Air. At a press conference this afternoon that he has asked the crack investigators of the well-known internet palace.
Yes. I'm Joe. Thinking Sideways, and I'm Joe. Assisted by
Devin.
and
Steve.
yeah.
I feel like I was yelling. Sorry.
So, decades, if not centuries, or even millennia. And of course, we always solve them. But this week, we thought we'd do something a little more topical. And you know what I'm talking about?
For the love of God, the other day I was...
This one, we're going to find those people, and we're going to bring them back alive. Right?
Maybe.
Yeah, right. Okay, so let's launch right into this. I mean, I know that everybody who's listening, or 99% of you, have been hearing nothing but Flight 370 for the past week, so I'm not going to go over all the little details. But I'll summarize just real quickly. The flight took off from Kuala Lumpur, headed north over the Malaysian peninsula. towards Beijing.
Vibrated. It sounded like a phone buzzing.
The government were that the ACARS, which is the Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System.
What they've been.
There's ACARS, but there's also a transponder too.
Oh, okay. So this is something else. Never mind.
Yeah, that's a communication system. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Already, I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. What happened is that in 2011, it's more visible to radar, and so
Sending out pings, basically.
Basically, what it does, if you get painted by radar, then it sends a reply, and so it makes you a lot more visible to them. Apparently, ACARS did stop communicating at some point, right about when they were crossing the coastline into the ocean, and then somewhat after that, the transponder was shut off, and that. It was in a key spot because it was in the boundary between Malaysian air traffic control and Vietnamese air traffic control. So kind of in that no man's land out there.
Oh, so like after they'd stopped communicating with Malaysia, before they had to start communicating with Vietnam, they shut it.
Yeah, ACARS stopped earlier, and then the transponder was shut off, like right between Malaysia. Okay. Entirely shut off. They said that it was completely shut off, but apparently it was still working because you've been hearing those stories about how all that stuff goes through the ACARS system. There's an antenna and all that kind of stuff goes through ACARS. So apparently it was shut off in terms of communications. They stopped. So this guy Peter Heinrich, plane, but they were still and also the engine stuff. But the system itself is programmed to every half hour ping the satellite.
Yeah, so the way I've heard it described is like a cell phone, kind of, right? The cell phone was turned off, but cell phones still send out little like, "Hey, I'm here."
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm here."
Yeah,
hey,
exactly. Yeah,
I'm still here.
Yeah, in the context of the ACARS system, it's called a handshake.
Right. So they turned off the like.
Absolutely. So anyway,
in part was
it still was still.
So it wasn't totally disabled.
It's kind of a passive system.
Yeah.
Paul Heinrich. Excuse me. Okay, so let's start again.
And functioning and receiving energy, I guess.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, I read a Reuters interview with 6 pilots who have experience with the 777, and they said, down into a little room and pulling a fuse. And
so not just like flipping a switch.
No.
Got it.
Flipping a switch probably shuts off the communication bar, but actually, but. To narrow the search down to a very tiny field of millions of square miles. And of course,
it is a tiny area.
Yeah. So anyway, real quick, so the plane headed southwest back across the Malaysian peninsula, and at the time of this course change, halfway between Malaysia and Vietnam, the plane did go take a big excursion to 45,000 feet, which is beyond the operating envelope of the airplane.
I was going to say, what do they normally?
This is about 35,000 square feet, and I think the 43,000 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, so 45,000.
But it's still outside of tolerance.
Yeah.
So it had been like roller coastering.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was roller.
Night, huh?
Yeah. Usually is.
I'm gonna close the door. 1,000 feet, which is below where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be about 35 feet.
And now, can you just remind me quickly, what time did Shibuya in the middle of the night?
It was a red eye. It was a red eye flight.
So it was dark out.
Yeah, it was dark out.
Okay.
When they left, it was dark, and when everything got shut off, it was still dark. So after bouncing up and down and everything, it turned southwest, went across the Malay Peninsula, wound up in the Malacca Straits. Then I know that place again. I know. And then it turned northwest, and it was tracked for a while by a military. After that, the only subsequent tracking was done via the beeps it was getting from the ACARS system. It goes all the way from northern Thailand all the way to Kazakhstan, and there's another one that goes southwest all the way to Diego Garcia or somewhere around there.
And I was going to say,
Oh, we're back.
Showing the radius of how far it could have gone. And I know that we'll put that on the website because it really was. You hear, okay, well, it can go.
At that Baskin Abercat.
That Malaysian air flight is probably somewhere on Earth.
No, it's not.
I feel like that's the most
quite a bit.
accurate description of where people think it might be.
Is that like the Onion?
Yeah, or something. It's
Yeah,
probably on Earth.
But it is amazing how far the stinking planes can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, it could have gone all the way to Kazakhstan in one direction. It could have almost made it to Australia in the other direction.
Yeah.
So that's a huge...
Have to go. Say goodbye, Bean.
That's the problem.
And water there's currents and winds and everything blowing your wreckage all over the place.
It had, 239 people on it, including the crew?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
so
that's...
227 passengers, and so it was not fully loaded, but it's still.
But it wasn't.
777-200 ER, which is the extended range.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay, I was... That explains it. I kept seeing it.
Thinking sideways.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but aren't those like some of the most reliable planes out there right now?
Oh, yeah.
Like they've never suffered a catastrophic failure before or ever or something like that. I think I read they've never crashed ever.
Yeah, well, there was that little thing in San Francisco. That was remember that a year or so ago, where they had a big crash in San Francisco.
And that was pilot error.
That was pilot error. Yeah, you can't blame the plane for that. And
but
so,
as far as the actual plane itself goes, they were saying this
Does not compute.
You never know.
So the fact that that it's people were saying, well, maybe it's electric. People were kind of saying it seems unlikely given that it's never happened before. But again, right? There's always a first time for everything.
Absolutely, there is. One of the theories is that there was a catastrophic decompression of the plane because they were hit by a meteor.
A meteor?
Yeah.
Are you serious? We're jumping right...
Devin?
Okay, tonight we're giving you a... So anyway, but the last ping that was received from the ACAR system was at 8:11 a.m.
Oh.
So that is...
8 hours.
That's 7 hours. 7.5 hours after they went up
Wow.
course. So yeah, they were flying for a long time, which makes me wonder if maybe they had more gas than they think, because they had enough gas for a 5-hour flight to Beijing. That's about 2,700 nautical miles, I think.
I read that it had enough gas for...
So fast. So, without any further ado, let's get right into the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. I mean, you
Right.
don't want a full tank because that's a lot of weight to carry around.
But you also don't want...
wind and that kind of thing. They put a little extra in for diversion and maybe a little safety cushion after that.
Yeah.
Well,
Because who wants to be landing on an empty tank?
I
since we posted our episode about MA Street over PDX,
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember hearing about that.
No, I don't.
Yeah, it was like they were in a holding pattern over the airport. Data on if you weren't aware of them. That indicated his landing gear wasn't down and locked the way it should be. So he was flying around and they were trying to figure it out, and meantime he ran out of gas and crashed it in a Portland neighborhood. Luckily managed to hit a vacant lot and not too many people got killed.
How long ago was this?
It was
This was years ago.
Like 7 or 8, I would say.
At least, probably more than that.
Okay,
Yeah, a long
all right. I
time
was like,
ago.
whoa, this does not ring a bell.
Yeah.
It's an old one.
Okay,
Yeah.
a long time ago. Got it.
Claims that they have found a jetliner at the Bay of Bengal. Out there, of course, that this is some sort of conspiracy to hijack the plane.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, they say nobody, you don't really know how much got put into it, because if somebody in the ground crew was in on the whole thing, then he could have actually put quite a bit more. Said they don't take their claims seriously. Nobody else has actually bothered to go.
Capacity, like if it had been full up, how much fly time would it have had?
In terms of, I'm not sure about it. It really is, actually. It seems like unlikely that its range of the ER is 7,700 nautical miles. which is like 14,000 some kilometers, something like that.
Which is like, yeah, I mean,
What-
like just like
That'll, I
at
mean,
average speed.
that'll get you a long ways. That'll probably from where they were at. That I imagine that would get you to Europe. It would certainly get you to, if you wanted to go to Kazakhstan or Pakistan, it would get you there easy.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't look to. It seems to me that based on the fuel that they had, if that's accurate, they did a much longer period of time than it would have taken. But at the same time, if you look at those arrows and the fact that they were getting pinged from that, maybe they did.
Yeah. Maybe they made it.
Maybe they made it. I don't know. So now that we've got all the sort of basics down, it's time-
Housekeeping.
Seriously, and what are they basing?
Some are really rational.
some of them are pretty good, and some
Yeah.
of them are a little out there. But I've actually not included some of the most loony. I think that their mission is to find stuff.
Ew.
All right, cool.
Don't worry.
All right, so I divided the theories into two categories. One is how, the other is why. So
Okay.
Okay,
We
perfect.
want to know how did this happen and why did it happen.
Okay.
Okay, so under how, so how did this thing disappear without a trace? Again, we've all seen the maps that indicate these arcs going northwest and also going southwest over the ocean. But since it was already headed northwest, I would surmise, apparently one of the ways they do it is by sniffing the air above the northwest. It was going over all kinds of countries.
A lot of airspace.
A lot. And apparently, so how did they evade all these military radars of all these countries that it flew over? Well, okay, so theory number one, it didn't evade. In fact, to find a plane crash site, like traces of jet, and now they're keeping quiet about it because it's kind of an embarrassing faux pas.
I was talking to somebody before this about this, theory, and they said, yeah, but I feel like China's the perfect place to shoot somebody down, though, right? There's a lot of open space. I just listened to something about how China's actually trying to relocate most of their farmers into urban areas.
Yeah, they are.
So there's like a lot of kind of rural areas that are just abandoned.
With no people.
With no people.
Yeah, and China's like most countries around the world too. Most of the population is actually close to the coast, and this would be as far away from the Chinese coast as you can imagine. It's desert. So anyway, I don't know exactly how their technology works.
Of course, is what covering this up because they were like,
Yeah.
oh, oops.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, oops. And so fill everybody in on all the dirty little details of how their tech works, but they claim because he might talk. So, and then they send a brigade of soldiers up there to clean up the mess and sanitize the site. And then, of course, they shoot them and put them in a mass grave.
They claim that they found this or that they found a plane crash.
Well, that's your shot too. But eventually,
Jeez.
eventually you get far enough down the line.
Seriously.
Yeah. So that's a possibility. I don't totally. Okay, that's development number one. Development number two. Now I know.
I know.
Yeah,
it seems
that's
that
a
way.
pretty big stretch.
Yeah, it is. And also, I don't know if you guys have noticed, the Chinese are kind of like the Russians in that they don't really care about world opinion.
Not very often.
Not a hell of a lot.
It would have been very easy for them to say they weren't responding to us and we thought it was a danger, so we shot them down.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, it's unknown aircraft, and we thought it could have been a nuclear bomber or God knows what. So,
definitely not like a good defense, but
that the plane took the southern route, and the reason the 777 shows up outside, like say Tel Aviv or Manhattan, anytime in the next week or two, it's pinging on the plane.
In Mercy.
Yeah. All right. So another theory is that it evaded radar because it flew in the shadow of another airliner.
This is really interesting.
Into aviation. His name is Keith Ledgerwood. He matched up MH370's course to another flight, another 777, by the way. Highly confident that MH370 flew south and not north. And it takes a route that kind of goes, crosses where our flight 370 was, and continues on westward, kind of northwestward across India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, etc. And it was about at the same time. So he compared their flight paths and the timing and everything like that, and they were very close to each other. And our flight 370 could have swung in behind. Series of pings. that went from the satellite down. It required them to shadow them pretty closely. They would have had to be within about 1,000. The return time of the ping grew
Not
long.
but within 100 meters, but below.
Yeah, 1,000 meters.
Or 1,000, yeah.
Well, no, yeah, you wouldn't want to be right smack behind him. You want to either be above or
they're
below
not going to
him
draft
the satellite. But they didn't know what direction the ping was coming
Would it have been? Does it give it more wiggle room? Is it like a?
Yeah, it gives you a little more. I mean, obviously, the guy at Singapore at Flight 68 is not going to slam on his brakes. He wouldn't have any reason to. And speed up and things like that. So obviously, you want to give yourself as much wiggle room as you can, but still stay close. But
and what I was wondering about that is, and I don't know this, so I'm going to ask, and I'm going to guess you have the answer. Is do planes, when they're in the air, to track other planes that are around, do they run any kind of active radar of their own, or they just follow their plan and presume nobody's going to be in the way?
Mm-hmm.
They leave it up to air traffic control.
Yeah, they leave their data, and we'll talk a little bit more about how they figured that out.
See that other plane if it accidentally got a little ahead of them.
Right, because
wasn't always following.
The third development is that there is a private intelligence organization.
Lights are off.
Lights
and
are
they have
off.
No idea.
Yeah, lights are off. Transponders off. All
and
that
they're
stuff.
trusting. Right, air traffic control will be like, dude, there's a plane real close to
I
you.
know. Group network. And these guys. No, I never saw that.
It's Billy Bob Thornton and oh gosh.
So you know
Matthew
right off the
Broderick,
bat,
I think
it's
it
a
is.
great
Is it
movie.
Broderick that's in that?
They have intelligence that indicates that the plane landed on.
Easy stuff that goes on. That's what I can. I imagine that would be really difficult to be in that same situation while you're in your own plane.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of the civilian flight control, it probably would have worked just fine, especially since their transponder was off, because apparently the resolution on civilian radars is not as precise as military's. Military radars, they have a higher resolution, which is why you'd have to stay really, really close to keep them from figuring out.
Be the CIA headquarters.
Included was an
glitch.
echo, just an echo or a glitch or something like that. So. That work for Ed Langley, Gun out in Pakistan has lots and lots of big airstrips.
I had heard a theory or somebody claiming on the internet, and of course it was the internet, right? But I have problems with that theory for other reasons. So
wait, they're claiming that Boeing is saying specifically they know where it's landed, but
that like their technology track.
Private intelligence services like Stratfor is one that comes to mind.
Was said that it had landed in. The Taliban are not the kind of group who are like, yeah, let's play this one close to the chest.
Yeah.
No.
Let's just like keep it on the DL. Like let's not tell anybody that we have this plane until we have this plane.
It depends on what they're going to do with it, though.
But I just feel like
if you're going to fly over to Tel Aviv with a bunch of dirty bombs or nukes or something like that, then you obviously don't want to advertise that you have it. They're entirely private. But they're non-governmental.
High profile, so it's not like you're gonna.
Well, you want to definitely hide that thing and be discreet.
It's been landed somewhere.
Yeah, apparently they interviewed some Taliban guys, and one of their spokesmen denied that they had it, and they said they knew nothing about it. And they interviewed some other jihad and some engineers at Boeing who have. Wow, that'd be so cool. I really wish we could get a hold of something like that.
I wish we thought of that.
I know.
Man, we missed out.
I know. I would really. Which makes me think that I find that theory to be kind of credible. That might have allowed them to evade radar.
Yeah.
So next theory, how did they evade radar? Well, maybe they didn't go northwest. Maybe they actually did go southwest and head off sort of towards Diego Garcia, that direction, South Indian Ocean. And then eventually either had a remote island somewhere out there that had a long enough airstrip for them to land on. Or according to one nut job, he says that they crashed, or he says that they probably crashed into the airbase at Diego Garcia. Big plane, it would be really easy to hide an extra transponder or two on it. And according to this guy's conspiracy theory, the government's covering it up because that's just about it. So if somebody was going to...
There has been talk that it went to, is it Andaman Islands? They're in the Bay of Bengal. Yeah. And they've got...
somewhere. then the first thing that they would do if they wanted to hide the
777.
yeah.
And so if it was heading southwestish, that's
Yeah, it
if I
could've-
understand where it was at in relation, it could have gone there.
Yeah, though
except that nobody saw it.
to tell them where every single switch for every transponder in their airplane, their airport.
Well, and I don't think that it's a airport that is what we consider an airport, as in not a good tarmac, but it's kind of dirt. So you would imagine the landing gear in a plane that heavy coming in that fast would sink and snap and crash, and then
Maybe.
we'd all see it.
Yeah, maybe.
But didn't the pilot of this flight have like 18 or like 20 years of flight experience?
He had like 18,000 hours.
Yeah, he was like...
Everything off.
Shah, I think, is
Zahari
is the
Shah,
thing.
yeah. And he was a guy, and
Yeah, but it seems like the sort of thing that Boeing would...
but really into flying, and as you guys have all heard, I'm sure that he had this flight simulator set up in his house.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a picture of it. It was really a pretty cool setup. Stuff. It was
I think that's, one of the interesting things is people keep talking about. This is like, when you look at pilots who are like going to successfully be able to... Government... We have this hidden thing, a pilot you look for, right?
No.
Like, he's supposedly like a really great pilot.
He's
got
obsessed
a lot
with
of
flying.
hours.
He loves to fly.
Yeah,
And that's all
obviously.
he does in his spare
Yeah.
time.
He may have been capable of landing in... I'm sure he actually was probably capable of landing in less than ideal circumstances.
But that might have also made him overconfident.
Maybe.
Oh, I've done this before in simulators. I've done this 1,000 times. I can totally make this work. No problem. No, don't worry about that. I got that. No,
Yeah.
you don't do that. I got this. You do.
Deal.
No.
Let's get out of the cockpit.
Yeah, although...
Cowboy mentality.
And to be fair, right, we did some covert something or another. Oh yeah, we saw that thing.
Yeah, I know. There could be, I read one little bit. Somebody said that there was an old World War II B-20. As you know, if you listen to our previous episode, find any corroboration of that, and I couldn't find anything. So I have no idea. There, and of course, it depends if somebody's actually using it. It was in the hands of terrorists who are going to come to you. It's going to be in such sad shape that it might not be possible to land on.
Yeah.
So but the Pacific, I found a site where this guy it was not a well-designed site at all. But this guy had pictures and drawings of quite a few old landing strips out in the Pacific. And they're all over the place. I mean, they really are, from especially dating from World War II time. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of little atolls and islands that just got turned into basically
aliens.
Yeah. Yeah. Now
I don't remember agreeing to that.
Now that's it.
Yeah.
And they're out in the middle of nowhere. So it's entirely possible.
The nuclear thing.
Oh yeah, we agreed. To
I know I didn't.
aliens,
Which of course we're not sure that it is. It could have been totally just kind of an accident kind of thing, but they could have actually found one of these things.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one.
What about the black hole? Where you they need to refuel it and get it back on its way and get it somewhere to hide it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it's entirely possible. These things are all over the place.
I was looking.
Okay.
it's such a spoil.
At the end of it is out of New York. They were doing a bunch of research on it, and I found some of their stuff, and they were saying that from one of the last known locations in that big circle of where this plane could have landed, there's over 600 airports or runways that are big enough to land that 777. So it is possible that it was on an island, or it's some random remote airport somewhere that it somehow didn't get picked up by the radar. In any number of places. And this is, of course, saying that it came down whole and was landed where it's broken.
Okay.
And the first character, the one that I came across, and this is getting into the, how did nobody see it kind of thing, is, and this is a really far-fetched, it is actually at an that it was using cloaking technology, and that's why you couldn't see it on the radar.
Of course.
And there's a company called of the letter H would be 20 employees on that plane, and it sounds like they're involved with some government contracts. So potentially they could be in this, we're trying to make invisibility cloak research stuff, and so maybe they did a live test of it, and that's why they had so many of their employees on there.
I like it.
And this reminds me, if you remember Elisa Lam, somebody said, oh, well, there's an invisibility cloak. This is kind of along that same. This one is at an angle, put a lot of stock in it,
No, I
but
think
it is out there.
I think a more feasible technology, if you wanted to,
It was
the visible light spectrum would be a lot more useful, and so you can imagine them doing something like that. Like one of the things they've talked about with radar and also with sonar.
a different legion.
Yeah, and like to explain to our listeners, one lane shape. Instead, when you receive a signal, and you know some of that's going to echo back to those people, what you do is so when you're hit with, they didn't disappear from England. They were just canceling tones work.
Kinda.
Yeah, so it's like in sound. In sound, if your sound is being emitted and you emit sound at the same time, that is exactly the opposite in terms of the wavelength.
They cancel each
the
other
same
out.
wavelength, but they're just out of sync with each other, like 50%. They cancel each other out, and you get silence. And there's been discussion about that kind of technology for things like radar and sonar.
Ah.
So yeah, it's a conceivable thing, but again,
Yes and no.
Yeah, and the discovery of this stuff.
And I think this is a thing that came out like literally today, that there were some.
It appears that they probably didn't get relocated to
Those islands?
I think so, yeah.
Maldives. That saw a jet matching the Malaysian airplane description, flying as low maybe as 80 feet.
We don't.
On this airplane, it was flying so low.
Pretty low.
They said
That's
that
really low.
Super low. They said that they saw
Company or a part of the Legion that got transferred there.
that was described as being white with red stripes on it, which is what the Malaysian Air flight or the Malaysian airplanes look like, flying overhead sometime kind of last week.
Huh.
And they're in that radius. So I guess that's another theory, right, is that they could have maybe just flown so low that they were below radar, right? Because that's a thing you can do, especially if you're a good pilot. So
Send
to avoid the radar, and it ups your fuel.
the Legion. So Legion A is getting its butt kicked.
Far out of range.
No, it's just a question of where do you go from there, especially since you're using up fuel at a much higher rate because.
A lot of islands, right? A lot of small islands.
There are.
So I wonder if there's a small island that's fairly uninhabited or that's controlled by.
And still consider themselves part of the 9th Legion. And this is the weird thing, is that, okay, so let's just say that somebody, for whoever it is, hijacked this plane. I'm not saying who was involved, but they hijacked the plane and they landed on one of these little islands. What are you going to do with it?
Well, yeah.
What's the deal? What are you doing with this plane? I don't understand. That's what I can't understand. When I come across all of these, they were hijack theory. The 7th Legion.
Well,
Exactly.
and I guess it's not even what are you going to do with that plane, right? But like
Group, regardless of
money to a lot of countries.
Well, that's it. And let me go through some of these things.
This whole thing is weird, and the Empire.
So it's not clear if the.
Well, no, and this is going down a different road.
Okay.
But did either of you ever watch the terrible miniseries or read the book, The Lango?
Say the Netherlands, and that they just sent 500.
Basically, this plane that slipped out of time.
Oh.
And then landed at an airport, and the Langoliers, time every second is rebuilt, and these things come along and they destroy it to recycle it to use later, is kind of what the theory is. The story sounded much more interesting than the miniseries was, because it was really badly done because it was made for TV.
Of course.
But it makes me think of that because it was just this plane.
Or
1,000 Men, because a Legion is of Lost.
yeah,
Yeah.
Where this plane just disappears and nobody really cares.
500
1,000.
or 1,000. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Some of you may know there's this little website called Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
There's this little.
Heard about it.
There's this little subreddit called No Sleep, which is not how it is, true stories. And there was like a thread not recently. I think I told you about it when it was happening. It was like, actually, I guess it was like when we first.
Or,
Or they all went flight. And it was just this really long story about how he was on this flight and suddenly, like,